art has this incredible power, doesn't it, to
Oh,
capture the very essence, the soul of a nation.
it really does.
And today, we're focusing on a really remarkable artistic voice from Djibouti, Xasan Cilmi Diiriye. Through his story, well, we hope you'll get a deeper understanding of a crucial period in the country's history.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, someone who appreciates gaining knowledge, efficiently and thoroughly, this exploration into Xasan Cilmi's literary journey offers a really unique opportunity.
Right.
We're not just looking at an individual, we're examining a pivotal figure and like a transformative time through his creative lens.
So our main reference point today,
Uh-huh.
it's going to be excerpts from the literary journey of Xasan Cilmi Diiriye. Think of it as our sort of core source as we navigate the depth and breadth of his contributions.
Exactly. And our mission, well, it's pretty straightforward. To delve into the life and work of Xasan Cilmi. We want to uncover key insights into how his artistry developed, the vital role he played in Djibouti's independence movement, and the lasting impact his creative work continues to have.
Okay, so where does this fascinating story begin? Let's dive in.
Right, so Xasan Cilmi Diiriye was born back in 1925 in Karawane, which is a rural area in the Adal region of what's now Somaliland.
And he came from a nomadic pastoralist family. A traditional way of life, it seems quite distant from the artistic path he'd eventually take.
It does. And what's truly striking, really, is that, unlike his parents, Sas possessed this inherent gift for poetry. It's described as, and forgive my pronunciation, Hibari sasan ulahasukontan ineahain mid hidarak ay tahe mid izaga ilahay guni ugumaneste.
Which means?
Basically, it wasn't like a family trait passed down. It was a unique talent, bestowed upon him, a gift.
Interesting. But even with this natural talent, he didn't start composing poetry early on.
No, not right away. Instead, he had this exceptional ability to memorize the poems of others. There's a wonderful story about his relative, Saksar Lakul.
Ah, yes. She recited a Baranbur, didn't she?
She did. Now, Buranbor is a poetic form traditionally composed and performed by women, often expressing their views on social political stuff. And young Sasan memorized her poem right then and there.
Wow.
Yeah. A fragment goes something like, Anaa faanaye Foodhyo, waxaad, tidhaa, Geeleygii, cascasaa, candoolnimo, kuma ogeyne, Caasha-badhi, yahay, adigaa, candhada, cunay. Even as a kid, this shows his deep connection to culture. It's described as Abwaan Xasan Cilmi, a profound love for culture.
That makes sense. So at 21, Xasan made a pretty big move to Djibouti.
He did, although he returned home briefly, but then settled there permanently about 2 years later.
And his early years in Djibouti sound like they were marked by, well, both hard work and a real drive to learn.
Definitely. He initially worked for the railway company, and then he had a longer stint at the port of Djibouti, from 55 to 66.
Okay.
But his commitment didn't just stop with his job. He actually pursued evening studies, taught himself to read and write, and even became fluent in French.
That really speaks volumes about his determination, doesn't it?
It really does.
And in his personal life, he married Kadri Kabdiahipokor, and they built quite a large family, 7 children, 20 grandchildren in total. It gives you a picture of a man with strong roots, in his community and family.
Absolutely. And by all accounts, his character kind of reflected this stability. He was known as good-natured, sociable, with a pure heart. People remembered him as calm, composed, very respectful, and his strong religious faith and that profound love for his culture, his nation, his people. These are themes that just keep coming up when people describe him.
And this deep love found a powerful outlet in his art, right? His extensive artistic work. He became a leading figure in both Djiboutian and Somali arts, a truly prolific writer.
Oh, incredibly prolific across many different forms. He wrote countless Gabe poems, songs, and an impressive number of plays, over 20, actually.
Over 20 plays, wow. And Gabe is?
Gabe is a major form of Somali poetry, often quite lengthy, dealing with important social, political, historical themes, very respected.
Got it. And some of his play titles were like Nafsigan Gale, Maigu Sugude, Miyo Magalo, Ranay Binire Faiso, and the one you mentioned, Sadex by Iskufante. That one sounds particularly well known.
It is very memorable. Now, what strikes me about his plays, and you touched on this, is their moral and socially conscious nature.
Yeah.
They weren't just, for entertainment. They really aimed to instill ethics, challenge negative cultural practices, it makes you wonder about the specific issues he was tackling.
Exactly, like Nafsagan Gale Maigu Sugude, did my own soul betray me?
Yeah.
That sounds like it could be dealing with some pretty heavy internal struggles, moral dilemmas relevant to the time, maybe.
I think so. Using the accessible medium of theater to perhaps subtly critique things like greed or dishonesty, sparking dialogue, you know.
In that play, Sadexba Iskufante, 3 boasted.
Oh.
You said it reflects on the past, present, and future of culture, almost like a cultural touchstone.
Precisely. And it gave them a truly iconic song, powerfully sung by Kabdo Amarkwood, who is known as Gufane. The refrain, Koran waliba dakankisa wa inu kudata, essentially, every nation should take pride in its culture, became this really resonant, unifying statement.
You can see why. And the lyrics you mentioned, they passionately criticize youth for imitating foreign cultures and champion their own heritage.
Strongly. There's a particularly moving stanza. It translates roughly to something like, both your women and men, today's youth, you play with what's broken down, chasing a distant gleaming appearance, following it blindly. Imitating foreign ways won't shield you from the cold. Why have you changed your own nature? It's such a powerful call to remember your roots.
Well, that's direct.
It is. And the play had other notable songs, too, like Tarek Darak, Follow History, Anu Lulo Kashaka, Let's Compete in Love, Fatal Demir, The Donkey's Virtue. It shows the breadth of his work, even within one play.
It's so important to remember, as you said, he wasn't just a writer. He was multi-talented.
Absolutely. Skilled at composing, reciting with a beautiful, melodious voice, acting in his own plays, even singing. A true Renaissance man of Djiboutian arts, you could say.
Which really enriched the whole cultural landscape. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. When did he actually start composing? When did that shift happen?
Right. Well, in an interview on the Tix Mal program, he said the urge to write first struck him around 1957. But his first actual poem didn't emerge until 1960.
Okay, so a few years later. And what was the trigger?
The trigger is quite revealing about the artistic climate then. It was actually a response to satirical poems by some older established poets, Abdillahi Silmi, known as Midakese, and Rubel Halas.
Satirical poems. About what?
They were quite critical of what they saw as the shortcomings of urban youth. Abdillahi's poem, for instance, had a really cutting tone. Well, it included lines that basically accused the youth of being, foolish, disrespectful, abandoning traditions. For example, Defka lagu waririo layimi, kwanso dabawen, dirindir sa di marku, dirito korijada, dirig ka benimo saktekse. Dako kulugay gabadiba isagundawen, lagu dul edanye. Dinkay dekasio afsumo, dorine sa seye, daba mudakle tutkio subnaha, hilid maksa diite, uksu dubduloyen namaksa, deliga nafayay.
That's a pretty harsh critique.
Yeah, sounds it. And Xasan's response in 1960, that's significant timing, isn't it? Because that coincided with the raising of the Somali flag.
Exactly. And his poem celebrated the very young people these older poets were criticizing, the youth who were actually instrumental in achieving Somalia's independence.
So it was a direct rebuttal, championing the youth. Completely. His first poem is this powerful, uplifting counter-narrative. He wrote lines like Dukuflo ninki dabakala dal buhele huakala dal kisihante dairara ahai ragi marada da buluria radka dokaye ikukuda nawakwa didia manautagel kima dubai les bakadadalakai dayaxba usobakse dulki da hashkusaraya kalanda hiwen ba dadashu ruda baldagai yaga kudalu sornemoduni ogahai.
He goes on, celebrating their achievement.
Yes. Magachida bulahadu dunida masheda korkia hadilaga bogsede dukta kichinaye dabayofi madioraje gugudava in darajo wanagbat heshio dikaktada timia dikunata butika no koberiji sudushe. It's a total shift in perspective, pride, recognition.
A clear declaration.
Yeah.
What's interesting is when Xasan tried to share this poem with Abdullahi, the first poet, he wasn't there.
Right. He'd apparently left town. So Xasan approached Rubel, the other poet who'd written critically, but Rubel didn't respond either.
Huh. So what does Xasan do?
Well, that lack of response spurred him to write another poem, this one where he humorously goes looking for Rubel.
That's brilliant.
It is. He writes lines like, Why adamba radkan kujire resano adage, ruku lorodka kamadalo u, wan rarais nahay radkisi bangubaya, Rubel ya waxarke. Basically, I've been searching high and low. Has anyone seen Rubel?
Level that.
It continues, Midnarak yuruklama arki, Rubel ya waxarke, malaha rafke balagudari, Rubel ya waxarke. Neither hide nor hair seen. Has anyone seen Rupal? Maybe he got swept away. And it goes on in this vein, playfully questioning Rubal's silence and reputation.
So these exchanges, even though they were maybe a bit satirical or playful, they marked his real entry into composing poetry.
Exactly, his formal entrance into that world. And around the same time, the 1960s, while he was still doing evening school, he also wrote his first play.
Right, Nafsieligaan Galay Maigu Sugade, and the purpose was quite practical.
Yeah, it was intended to raise funds for the school, but what's fascinating is who was in it.
Oh.
It featured some really significant figures in early modern Somali music, like Kabdisinamu and Ismasil Kanan, pioneers of the Balwo and Ismasil Kanan styles.
Wow, so even his first play connected him with these major artists.
It really shows his early integration into that broader artistic community. And his rise in the Djiboutian art scene in the 60s was pretty rapid. He joined Bon Esperance Good Hope, which was a really influential group then.
And became the main creative force within it, the Halaburka Uguwain.
Pretty much, yeah. He was the driving engine creatively.
But his engagement wasn't just artistic, was it? He was deeply connected to the public, especially during the independence struggle.
Very much so. His active participation in the resurgence of the independence movement in 1966, well, it was so significant it directly led to him losing his job.
At the port of Djibouti, right, along with thousands of others.
That's right. And it sounds like after that point, he basically dedicated himself even more fully to his art and the nationalist cause. He didn't hold regular employment again.
Which must have involved considerable risk, being so vocal against the colonial authorities.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really important point. Losing his job was one thing, but there was likely also the risk of, surveillance, censorship, maybe even worse repercussions. His commitment really underscores the power he saw in art as a form of resistance.
And his personal philosophy on art really drives that home. Can you share that quote again?
Yeah, it's powerful. Funkua mukwalka umada, umad anfan lahena mukwalmale, funkua sitada umada, sidagid sidad lahani ushogi karin, aya umad anfan lahainen unulan karin.
Art is the image of a nation. A nation without art has no image. Art is the roots.
Art is the roots of a nation. Just as a tree cannot stand without roots, so a nation cannot live without art. A fundamental belief for him.
And you can see how this played out. Before 1971, you had these major art groups, Carrie, Bon Espérance, Union de la Jeunesse Vitale, but divided along clan lines.
Yes, that division was a problem. But then in 1971, something pivotal happened. They unified.
To form Gakan Makan, Sweet Handshake. That's a great name.
Isn't it? And interestingly, this unification in the arts actually came before a similar unification of political organizations, which happened in 1973.
Do you think that was just coincidence? Or did the artistic unity maybe pave the way?
That's a really insightful question. I think it's highly likely the art groups unifying created a sense of shared identity, a shared purpose, that then helped facilitate political unity. Artists like Xasan Cilmi, respected across different communities, probably played a huge role in bridging those divides through their work, fostering that collective national consciousness.
Makes sense. And this period saw a real surge in his nationalist poetry, right? Focused on liberation.
Absolutely. He even used art as direct protest, writing these metaphorical songs. One excerpt basically says that colonial power is useless if people unite.
Can you give us a bit of that?
Sure. Davak shidlaga maklio, shankoyo shankadi, milani jirin. Shibio kamaha shakilan, adu, shibik, hudan gela, shabil dala, ushan kade, hadusha kwalka escarrogo. Intu shanabada kwado, the Galkugu Sushirobo, Aluwa Kashala, Faladi, Shinbeidakta, Hadan Shirikshadu Kugin Shenshadawalaga Kabama. It's a complex imagery, but the core message is resilience and strength and unity against an oppressor, even one that seems fierce like a tiger.
Powerful message indeed. So fast forward to 1977. Djibouti achieves independence. Did his writing slow down then?
Not at all. He continued to be incredibly prolific. Remember, he'd already written hundreds of poems and songs during the struggle, and afterwards he kept going. One particularly significant poem was written on the very night the flag was raised.
Wow. What was it called?
Ma Kujuja Kalanki, which translates to something like, did the flag stop you? Or maybe did the flag make you pause? It implies the weight of the moment.
And it reflects on the journey.
Oh, deeply. It's long, very moving. It reflects on the immense struggles, the sacrifices, the hard-won nature of freedom. Lines like, Waxajamataya digonu jabin amahu jajamin, what you desired without breaking or faltering, and it goes on to list all the hardships endured. Adigon jarakyo umarin, jirta lagudalo, jibuwala nadigon lakisin, adigo jahad kulu ujelan, jahar adigon udichin, mutada jitisio adun, jabakta muganin. It recounts facing violence, imprisonment, suffering, near despair.
It sounds incredibly raw and honest about the cost.
Very. Jamal kayo krukstia du jagaku kalifin aregonjit kagyo hilbaka uguajimin sirajitaloy bisadi lukunji badaiso markaji ni kwadaba adun jufka lagulasin melagu jirudio adun julka laguginin, and then the turn towards unity and victory. Jamai hushisio hetian wada julura den jufali hadon lugu kisin ananka dititi sa umet kala janjitio stornimo jisir laguwe.
Saying freedom couldn't be one divided.
And the final lines about colonialism. Istikmarika jamudesidu jilipkanu sarai jilabhahi iyo jogunwa nagu jaksasnae. Waki jujug nagu marsare, waki jikur nabu mamule. Inkastu janabadege ujobeno sexte, ujurjene jitko dapchu jitijixlu dite wexan ujidali nabajabine juji maku juja kalanki bartiti sa lagajide. It's a declaration. Despite everything, we endured, we broke their power, and did the new flag, replacing theirs, make you stop and realize what we achieved.
Just incredible. So much history and emotion packed in there.
Absolutely. And he also wrote a shorter but equally powerful poem just dedicated to the flag itself. Lines like, Tanayu berigan barbara no borio kurai butada kalankanu kadayu bugisa hadanis tage. Basically saying, since I grew up longing for this, I carried the pain for this flag, now I stand beside it. Bawayo gabe, ibanane, mian barihisa, shigakagar, bakseyo bandugul, baror madokar. Iga batanka sitiglagu bayanshe, hilak biliglaban mude, markanan, biligdisa, ige bathaki, bisharana usidaye, poshara wadankayo bakabarido kusudowiya. Describing its colors, the star, its beauty, the joy it brings, and calling on the people to welcome it.
You really feel the emotion.
Yeah.
And his contributions were formally recognized, weren't they?
Yes, they were. In 2002, in recognition of that long struggle and his huge contributions to culture and the Somali language, he was awarded the National Medal of the 27th of June by President Ismail Omar Guelleh, a truly fitting honor.
Absolutely deserved.
And then 2 years after independence, in 1979, he wrote another really significant poem. This one was titled, Wan Kadidiye, I Have Persevered.
I have persevered. What's the theme there?
It's a powerful reflection looking back on the hardships endured during the fight, but focusing on the ultimate triumph, the perseverance.
Liznandri sounds vivid in that one, too.
Incredibly, he uses this extended metaphor involving a thirsty camel finally reaching water after a long, hard journey in the heat. Lines like, Hari damakta jilal furo, dagayara gel babar shuga, din korid bia awaw dinta, isagudam balakwinayu dohondo hulita, describing the camel's near-death thirst and exhaustion.
And then the relief.
Yes, the relief when it finally reaches the well. Mart kukaga sudigo halki laga dibilae diada barorta ahadu tabugu idamo. Kidakaima ditibzada tigasaman tiftio harad kula shei takededai dapsuchilka ugudafat tarkumaxta ugadamia. The owner understands its suffering, lets it drink deeply.
And he connects this to the national struggle.
Directly, he says, Anigune dijisu kalan uguditerarae dayal ijo cherlaguma helen dubla hansudhaida barkan gial ugarara. I am just like that camel I endured for so long. This flag we raised wasn't achieved through ease or play. I carried its burden for years. Tatakwak sornimo dunahu, tiranba kakaye dalinyaro naftudi hurae, tafay kududi darbaksoyin balula tage kakadurkalehe. Talking about the courageous movement, the youth who sacrificed, the blows struck against the colonizer.
It brings it all together, the suffering, the fight, the achievement.
Exactly. And the joy of finally achieving it, comparing it to a mother finally holding her child after a difficult birth. Sira na dalma de gaxisayon wailage dijin udirifto yubadatiu taban marke wede waxi de fushaba marador kuradu lud dibe kudoshuke horan uturmayo mantunkaniai. Like a woman struggling in childbirth who finally holds her newborn, I waited so long, now I savor it, I kiss it.
That's incredibly moving imagery.
It is. And he concludes by addressing those who might underestimate the achievement.
Kalankan dadhabaha ukorai tibiyuhay tarta kalankan laday gawekse tilaygu kalay kalankan da kalanaftio. Huni ugegigay dalantid ninkimuday awahan ka. Tadidahay dagartin na kalada aduna badadarayu.
This flag I climbed hardships for, this flag I stared at through all the suffering, this flag I sacrificed my well-being and sustenance for. Whoever thinks it's an illusion, I have persevered. Leave your plotting. Respect the peace.
Just powerful. A testament to resilience. And beyond these major political poems, he also wrote love songs and other nationalistic pieces.
Yes, quite a range. Titles like La Gumaranya Ma Ada, Are You the One Being Argued About? Caasha-badhi, This Love I Call Out To. And Agun Koryai Jabuta, Oh Djibouti, You Who Raise Orphans. It really shows his versatility.
And he wasn't just operating within Djibouti, right? He participated in those broader Somali poetic chains, the Cilmi and Diiriye series.
Yeah, he did. That shows his connection to the wider Somali literary world. His contribution to Diiriye in 1980 included lines reflecting on the value of learning, like Diklu Buga Yodahabwiya Barashadu. Learning is a cherished gift. It is gold.
Comparing it to light, shelter.
Exactly. Duriya Sohilacho Derbi Lagu Kaweyo Damal Waye Barashadu Dayak Skuiftimio Duhur Waye Barashadu. It's a breaking dawn, a wall to gather by, a shady tree, a moon lighting your way, its midday sun. He saw learning as profoundly illuminating and valuable.
And his contribution to Cilmi back in '73.
That one had his characteristic questioning style, addressing the other poets in the chain. Nimanki Sameo Horta Inzansalanai Subaks Wakan Matustin. You men who composed these, first I greet you, did you wake well? And then he poses questions about the nature of the poetry itself, referencing a female figure, Saksarno du Magababa, is Saksala a girl, playing with the forms and themes.
It shows such deep engagement with the tradition itself.
Absolutely. And beyond just participating, he had this truly profound understanding of Somali poetry. He meticulously cataloged the different poetic godad.
The godad. What are those exactly?
Think of them as the underlying rhythmic and structural frameworks, the meters, the patterns of Somali poetry. Mastering these was crucial.
And Xasan Cilmi wasn't just a master, he innovated.
Yes. He didn't just know the existing forms inside out, he actually created new ones, which is pretty remarkable.
That is remarkable. And his talents extended into religious poetry, too.
Significantly. He composed beautiful praise poems for the Prophet Muhammad Qasaid Nebi Amana and prayers. These were incredibly popular, highly regarded, considered some of the finest in the Djiboutian archives.
What made them stand out, do you think?
Probably that combination of his profound personal faith and his exceptional poetic skill. He could weave these deep spiritual messages into respected poetic structures, making them both meaningful and really accessible.
And he did something quite unique with translations, didn't he?
Yes, this is fascinating. He could translate Arabic Qasaid directly into Somali, but not just translating the words, he adapted the intricate Arabic poetic meter into a Somali equivalent.
Translating the meter as well, that takes incredible skill.
It really does. He translated around 10 like that. Here's a little taste from his translation of a praise poem for Prophet Muhammad. Ya Rabbi Salikala Muksamad Mabiyuna Ashrafil Anami Mare Henu Masafe Wayai Mainunka Dientu Mustafe Wayai. Listing the Prophet's qualities. Our guide is Mustafa, the core of faith is Mustaf.
Mukhliska Darte, Mustafi Wai Muksubogaro, Abwaan Xasan Cilmi and Maidmen, Maksamad Bale, Makalinkinu, Mustafwai Madkarakairku, Mustafi Wai Maxdigaradku, Mustafwi.
Exactly. Musubogara, Abwaan Xasan Cilmi and Maidmen Maksamad Bale here. Ya Rabbi Sali Kala, Muksamad Dabiyuna Ashrafil Anami. His ability to bridge those linguistic and poetic traditions is just amazing.
Truly. And we also have excerpts from what's described as his final prayer poem.
Yes, a really poignant piece, a reminder of the fleeting nature of this world, the importance of preparing for the afterlife. He wrote, Garanu adun wa gediu lega guri gulo, alawa kiro nagi guri raksho. Know that the world is a journey, one departs from it. O God, our victor, take us to homes of comfort in the hereafter.
A prayer for mercy and guidance.
Adigoru vichugire tavsun. Kail ki bicho hana jelindam biga kugu gana kadapta gunteda dat kuga guchonin gabu bayu gubak siti gobdan la hurin saida ugurtu tiria gashela guma bixingunya da kilagagura matki jambie. Warning against sin, reminding that death comes for everyone, urging people to prepare provisions for the final journey.
And the refrain.
Garanu adunwa giriu laga gurigulo, alawa karonagi uraksho I mean. Know that the world is a journey, one departs from it. O God, our victor, take us to homes of comfort in the hereafter. Amen.
And there's a touching detail about this specific prayer, isn't there?
There is. It's deeply touching. So Xasan Cilmi had actually instructed that this very prayer be aired on radio and television after his passing.
And was it?
Yes, his wish was fulfilled. Adding another layer, the poem itself was composed in a unique poetic meter that he himself had innovated.
Wow. His creativity continued right to the end.
Yeah.
Abwaan Xasan Cilmi Diiriye passed away on July 13, 2009 in Djibouti.
He did, and we certainly extend our deepest condolences to his wife, his children, grandchildren, all his relatives and friends, and really everyone who loved his poetry and his immense contribution.
His impact on Djiboutian culture and the broader Somali literary tradition, it's truly immeasurable, isn't it? He stands as this towering figure, poet, playwright, nationalist. His art gave such a powerful voice to a nation's aspiration.
Absolutely. And for you, our listener, seeking knowledge and those aha moments of understanding, the life and work of Xasan Cilmi offers this wonderfully rich tapestry. It's a fascinating blend of artistic expression, pivotal history, and just unwavering personal dedication.
So this deep dive leaves us with maybe a final thought to ponder. Considering Xasan Cilmi's profound dedication, both to preserving and innovating within Somali poetic traditions, what responsibility do contemporary artists and audiences too hold today? How do we engage with and build upon such significant legacies?
That's a great question to leave people with. It really encourages us all to reflect on the enduring power, the importance of artistic expression right across the generations.